Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning from Miami. Let's see who we've got here this morning. Usually, with our kind of background, big holidays like this are not well attended. I'm glad to see people showing up today. We've got Digit Grimmy on text. Digit is out in Orms something on the far, far wilds of the western part of Florida. We got Rick and Judy, who live here in Miami. Bobby Vance is from Kissimmee. Maureen Sullivan is down by farm country. Margarita Santalier is here with Grant. Kim is up in Chicagoland, where it is 900 degrees below zero. Alan and Eddie are in Washington, and we are showing pictures of them at the zoo last night in Washington, D.C., where they have a famous light thing. We'll post the pictures up on the weekly. Cecilia's here in town. Mary Grimmy is somehow related to Digit Grimmy. Pat Sullivan is over in Forest Hills, Queens. Let's see who else we have here. We've got Nick is here near the airport. Chris Diaz in North Miami. Welcome you all. Welcome you all. A reminder that Grant is soloing today. And a reminder that our lessons and carols will be Zoom. I ask your prayers for Casey, who got very sick, and then his brother Corey, and now Aurelie. They have that cold that's going around. It's cold, flash flu, slash, but it's not COVID. But they're very, very sick, so keep them in your thoughts and prayers. We'll make up visiting with them in a month or two. Okay, for those of you who may have forgotten, Christmas, the 25th of December, is late in the Christian calendar. That comes as a big shock to everybody. Christians did not start celebrating Christmas till about 200 to 300 years after Jesus lived and died. That comes as a big shock to everybody. And those of you said, well, there are pagan influences. That is correct. And also the birthday of Mithra. Mithra was the manly man god from Persia that Alexander the Great adopted, brought west. He became the patron god of the Roman army. And so manly men, which would not include me, manly men who are good hunks were in the cult of Mithra. Christian men were weak. Drop and give me 20. You're all worthless and weak, skinny, 5'2", 5'3", lame, halt, and useless. And so the big thing was, if you're manly men, you couldn't possibly be a Christian. You had to be a member of the cult of Mithra. Ultimately, between the solstice, Mithra, and other things, Christians decided they needed something at Christmas time in December, and they finally decided on the 25th. Yes, it's very embarrassing if you take this all very literally. If you see things go with the flow, you'll kind of laugh and say, well, isn't that interesting? A couple of other things you might not know. Most Christians have never actually looked at a map of the Holy Land. You know, I teach religion classes. Almost none of my Christian students had any idea where Nazareth was located compared to Jerusalem and Bethlehem. I don't know if any of you are aware of this, but Nazareth is 90 miles from Bethlehem. Now, if that wants to help all of you out, you all know where Palm Beach County is? Imagine you were in Palm Beach County and had to walk to the city of Miami, barefoot and pregnant. Does that give you any idea about the birth stories? You also need to know that there are only two birth stories in the entire New Testament, Matthew and Luke, and they are totally different. Bet you didn't know that either. Matthew has Jesus born in a house. They were already living in Bethlehem. Luke has a census that never happened and have pregnant Mary and Joseph hiking from 90 miles away in Nazareth all the way down to Bethlehem. Bet you didn't know that either. The other thing which I thought was a delight is the Magi. Magi is the pastoral word for Zoroastrian clergy. You have Protestant ministers, Roman Catholic priests, Jewish rabbis, Zoroastrian Magi. So I say to my students, you need to know that there's no place else in the entire New Testament that knows anything about Magi. And one of my students says, well, why is that a big deal? I said, imagine Judy Homer is giving birth at Baptist Hospital, minding her own business, And guess what? 19 Bentleys pull up. 19 Bentleys. These dudes get out with all this stuff carrying gold. Would there be helicopters around the hospital in no time flat? Would the news be out there? Would everybody else be out there? Nobody knows anything about any magi anywhere. And the story was written 2 generations after Jesus lived and died. So I'm asking you to do what I would suggest we pay attention to. You're going to see in the share this morning. Let's take a look at something nobody ever really pays attention to, the actual birth. We'll get to that in a moment. Nobody ever pays attention to the birth. And there's some things. Have any of you ever heard of Ignaz Schmemmelweis? Aha, I got you. Moving right along then. Reminding everybody, if you want lessons and carols tonight, something nice and sweet before you let loose for the evening, at 6:30, Grant will be soloing again. We have a lovely service of lessons and carols, and God has spared us no sharing and no sermons. Finally, if I can, let me gently remind you, if you haven't already, if you can give a little something this Easter, this Christmas, we are hoping to expand more in 2024. Anything extra you can give us is deeply appreciated. Having said all that, again, one more time, welcome to Grimmy, to Judy and Rick, to Bobby Vance, to Pat Sullivan, to Mary Grimmy, who is somehow related to Digit Grimmy. Nick is here with us this morning. Maureen Sullivan, the hand was over here. Rowena Wallach made it in, our resident menorah maker. Margarita and Grant are hiding there behind the edifice. Kim Armando from nice tropical suburban Chicago, where it is minus 900. Alan and Eddie in Washington, D.C. Cecilia Lissandro down the street, who has both sons home at Christmas time. Chris Diaz from North Miami. And Danny Higuera, her oldest son, is here in town after having spent some wild times in Denmark. Yes, Maureen, you'll be glad to know Danny has been in Denmark and may be going back to Denmark. Yes, Pat Sullivan and Maureen, you're glad to know that Danny has been spending time and his Denmark girlfriend is coming to visit. Yes, yes. Where is Denmark? Does anybody ever heard of Denmark? Where is that? Does anybody know what that is? Oh, I will pay for that. Good morning, everybody. We light a memorial candle. We change our mode right now for a moment. This is not a particularly good time. We have some things going on in this world which are absolutely horrific. Cindy and Larry, by the way, have just joined us too from Port Orange. Some things I wrote down here that we tend to forget. You may have forgotten Somalia. You may have forgotten Darfur in Africa. The longest running war in the world right now is in the Congo in Africa. Up to 11 million people have died. It's still going on. The Congo, Somalia, Darfur has been run over again. Massacres are taking place. Let us not forget Gaza and Ukraine. Let us not forget Israel. And I want you to think about something that happened close to home. You remember Ikra and you remember Umar Rahman. Umar's brother, Usman, is married to a Palestinian. They went to visit her family, and when they went to visit her family, the war broke out. And they got caught behind the lines. You never know where people are going to be when things happen. So keep them all close to you. The innocents, regardless of the country, regardless of the politics, there are innocent people there. Keep the innocent ones in your hearts, please, now and always. Amen. And from George Fox University, as we start, Angels We Have Heard on High. Please join with me in a responsive call to worship from the book of the prophet Isaiah. If you would please read the part in R. For a child has been born to us, a son given to us. Authority rests upon his shoulders, and he is named Wonderful Counselor, mighty God, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. His authority shall grow continually, and there shall be endless peace. And all he will establish it and uphold it with justice and with righteousness from this time onward and forevermore. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this. And for those who wish, if you would read this prayer with me together. May this Christmas we light candles of joy despite all sadness. Candles of hope where their despair keeps watch. Candles for courage or fear ever present. Candles of peace for tempest-tossed days. Candles of grace to ease heavy burdens. Candles of love to inspire all living. May their light shine all the year long. Amen. For those of you who've not met Grant, once upon a time he was tiny. He's now almost 6 feet tall, sings in all kinds of plays, and is quite a musician. And on top of that, he's a lovely person, just a genuinely lovely person. And we'll be hearing again tonight. Judy Homer is going to be reading one of our readings this morning. Judy, if you would be so kind.
Ready?
Yeah.
Altars of light. If the light is the soul, then soul is what is all around me. It is you. It is you too. It is you. The darkness is inside me, the opaqueness of organs folded upon organs to make light in the house of the body, thus to bring the outside in, the impossible job. And the only place to become the skin, the border, the in-between, where dark meets light, where I meet you. In the house of world, the many darknesses are surrounded by light. To see the one, we need the other. It cuts both ways. Light on light is blind, dark on dark is blind. Light through dark is not. Dark through light is movement. Dark through light is becoming. To move through, light is becoming, is all we can know.
While Pentatonics was singing Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy, I know this group. Some of you were dancing around so we couldn't see you. I know that. I'm not going to call anybody out, but you know who you are. The responsive reading is new for this season, and I'm going to ask you if you would wish to read that which is in green. Spirit of life and love, we know you by many names, or perhaps no name at all, yet together we know this is a holy night. We come from many different traditions, or perhaps no tradition at all. We have celebrated decades of Christmases, or this might be only our first or second time at a Christmas Eve service, yet together we know this is a holy night. It is a holy night because we are here together, joined in our common humanity, listening to the words of the centuries-old stories, the familiar carols, recognizing these are our stories too. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. In the bleak midwinter, in this world of pain, may our hearts be open, may love be born again. The hopes and fears of all the years are met in thee tonight. Joy to the world, joy to the earth, peace on earth, goodwill to all. Silent night, holy night, may all be calm, may all be bright. We know together it is indeed a holy night, and we are blessed to share it together. And Bobby Vance will read to us from the Gospel of Luke.
When he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, He went to the synagogue on the Sabbath day, as was his custom. He stood up to read, and the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was given to him. He unrolled the scroll and found the place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." And he rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. The eyes of all in the synagogue were fixed on him.
Grant us, we ask, to speak, to hear, and to learn, so that our fears may be banished, our minds may become enlightened, our faith be increased, and our steps directed towards the light of love and justice and goodness for all. Amen. Christmas time is you're supposed to play it safe. Yes, and some of you may have remembered the famous words about P.D.Q. Bach, not a thing you'd think he mentioned in a Christmas share. It was once said of P.D.Q. Bach, he sought new paths of wonderful music discovery and got hopelessly lost. You may feel that way about this share by the time we finished. I wanted to take a look at something different, take a look at the Christmas story, something different. And of course, one of the problems at Christmas time is you've all heard everything. You name it, you've heard it. You've heard everything there is to hear. So how do you bring anything new? How do you look at anything from a different point of view? Ha ha! And I may have latched upon something, and then maybe I'm wandering in the desert, and somebody like Bobby will have to get a giant hook and pull me back at the end. Are you ready? We're going to start out with a Netflix. Yes, how do you like that for a Christmas story? We're starting out with Netflix. A Netflix Christmas special called Dash and Lily. Dash starts out by pulling a Christmas trifecta. You're going to love this, many of you. He tells his mom that he's with his father skiing in the Alps. He tells his father he's with his mother in Hawaii. And he tells all his friends in New York that he's out of town for Christmas. Yes. Then he opines, as he's without anybody at this point, that it's the most wretched time of the year. He says it's the most detestable time of the year, the forced cheer, the frenzied crowds, the feeling you're expected to be joyful even when you're not. Because when you are alone at Christmas, it's somehow worse than the rest of the year. Then, to make matters worse, he drags out Joni Mitchell. Some of you may remember her from years and years ago. And now she has this song where she's singing in this great festive time, quote, "It's coming on Christmas. They're cutting down trees. They're pulling up reindeer and singing songs of joy and peace. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on." Boy, that's lovely. Yes, yes, yes. A great way to begin Christmas. And so let us not forget, by the way, if you're feeling Christmassy, grandmother got run over by a reindeer. If you've forgotten that one, the reindeer couldn't have been that good because they missed Alvin and the Chipmunks. Why are that crowd still singing at Christmas time? Somebody answer me that. The reindeer messed on that one too. So it seems to me, as we get started off on Lily and Dash and trifectas, we have two types of Christmas worstness. Number one, honest, bad things have happened during the past year. Many of you have been to Connections, and Connections is a time when people share. Certain times of the years trigger things off. It just happens. I don't care what culture you're in. Every culture has major religious festivals. And those festivals trigger things. For us, Christmas time triggers and New Year's triggers a lot from the past. And this year is no different. Someone who's been loved has passed on. Somebody has lost a job. Somebody has had unexpectedly their self-esteem collapse. Here's one that's really, really annoying. Old grievances and resentments suddenly out of nowhere make an appearance. You thought you dealt with them all, and they're back there out of nowhere. Like, where did you come from? Why are you here? It's Christmas time. Go away. Well, we thought we'd remind you of just how angry you were and miserable you were, just in time to ruin your Christmas. That happens a lot, by the way. And they come to pay an unwelcome visit. Then here's the other one, which I love. This is something that everybody seems to be able to do very, very well. Did you notice what Dash did? He told his father he was with his mother, told his mother he was with his father, told his friends he was nowhere in town. And what did he do? He had the art of self-isolation. He wound up isolating himself all by himself. And what happens? Everybody does this. You say, nobody loves me, nobody cares for me, nobody calls me. Yet, did you call anybody? Did you see anybody? Or did you tell everybody your mother was your father was your mother, and you didn't work in town? We do this all the time, the splendid art of self-isolation. And one of our people in Connection said, it starts so subtly. You know, you decide you don't want to go out for the day. And then you decide, it's 2 days. And, you really don't need to go get that. And it's 3 days. And you suddenly find out you're going out for a few minutes at a time, and then you don't answer the phone. And then, you're like, turn off the phone. I don't know how you can turn off the phone or turn off your cell phone. That would drive everybody up. But people manage to do that. You don't answer your mail. It is incredible what we managed to do. I'm fascinated by this because nobody else is doing it. We're doing it ourselves. And I don't know about any of you. I've even done that. And the attitude you get, nobody loves me. Well, did you call anybody? No. Did you answer anybody's texts? No. Did you go where you were invited? No. Then what are you complaining about? But we do it so well. We do it so well. In all of this mess, I want to take a different route. I want to suggest we do something we don't often do at Christmas time. I want to actually take a look at the birth. Now, I know what you're going to be saying. Claus, a birth is a birth. What is the story? What is the story? What's a birth? What do you want to concentrate on a birth for? First of all, let's make it very, very clear. There's that song, The Cattle Were Lowing. That drives me nuts, Away in a Manger. Have you ever been where cows are? Have you ever been in a cow shed? This is not a romantic place, folks. A cow shed is full of stinky, sweaty, smelly cows, and they don't low and sweet like they moo. They poop and do other things, and it's not a sweet time. Wherever somebody came up with this idea, there's little sweet cows. Have you ever been next to a cow, anybody? Has anybody actually ever been next to a cow? They are huge. They are absolutely huge. They are this wide, I'm not joking, and you stand next to one and you realize how puny a Homo sapien is. Stand next to a cow and you're going to be in a big shock about how really, really puny our species is. A mere cow. So we take a look at a birth of a baby, and you're going, Claus, come on, a baby, what do we have to do with a baby? I'm going to read to you a statistic about babies, and this is going to shock you. You may be surprised to know that we are, as a country, awful with birth deaths. Are you ready for some very, very shocking news? The mortality rate in the United States was 5.44 in 2020. We rank right now in the United States 50th for infant deaths. 50th. Not first, we are not the best at taking care of babies. We're not the second best at taking care of babies and mothers. We're not in the top 10. We are not in the top 10 countries on this planet taking care of babies and their mothers. We're number 50. Can you believe that? We are number 50. So we say, births are a scary thing. In Jesus' lifetime, the mortality rate was 26%. 26% of all babies died. And guess what? You had 50% of dying before you hit 12. 50% of dying before you hit 12. So we talk about birth. We're not just talking about, oh, just another birth. We're talking about a woman who was probably in Nazareth, probably in a very poor circumstances, probably in a very, very poor spot. And who delivered the baby, by the way? Do you think she had an OBGYN from Harvard, from University of Miami, from FIU Medical School? No. No, she did not. And here's one for you. I hope you're going to love this one. Have you ever heard of Ignaz Semmelweis? If you have never heard of Ignaz Semmelweis, let me tell you something. He is the reason you are here today. You're going to Claus, what are you talking about? Ignaz Semmelweis was the first physician in the 1840s to suggest, don't be shocked about this. Are you ready for this? You need to wash your hands before you help deliver a baby. I want you to think about that. What does that mean? That means that for all these millennia, people went in to wash to deliver a baby. Where have those hands been? Cows? Oh, yes, you've got a midwife working with those beautiful lowing cows. What were they thinking of when they wrote that thing? You got somebody, a midwife who has other children of her own. She's had to cook, she's had to clean, and with those hands, she goes in and she helps deliver a baby. Most women, more than 25% of women will die from fevers they collect from those dirty hands infecting them after they've just given birth. He was the first doctor to suggest you needed to wash your hands, and guess how he decided to learn how about this? There were two clinics where he was. Clinic number one, the doctors worked on cadavers. You ready to be shocked? And then they went to deliver babies without washing their hands. And clinic number two, they went straight to the clinic, and he found most of the women who I had from clinic one got sick and died. Are you surprised? So we talk about births. In Afghanistan today, 1 in 8 women giving birth will die right now. Right now, 49% of the people in Afghanistan are 14 years and younger. If you are a baby born today, your chances of making it to puberty are just like it was 2,000 years ago, a mere 50%. Births are a big deal. You and I just take things for granted, but births are a big deal. Not only did Mary give birth and survive, she had children. This comes as a big shock. Mark's gospel, the first one written, mentions that his James followed him, and then Joseph and Thomas, and he had sisters. And she survived it all. And those births were significant because the kids lived and the mom lived. Well, not only do we have births, but we have something else. We're reminded that when we're born, this may come as a big shock to all of us, regardless of whether you have money or no money, regardless of what geography we are, regardless of what skin color we are, we still bring the same things to the table, you and I. You and I still bring genetics that we have no idea about. When you're born, everyone was born here, you have no idea what is in your genetic background. And one of the things that gets to be a lot of fun is when people actually do their DNA and see where they're actually from. And boy, is that a shock. You should see my students get upset. I had one student, and I won't mention their ethnic background, who is absolutely flabbergasted to know that they were 20% African. And I said, well, you're from the Iberian Peninsula. Who was in the Iberian Peninsula for 700 years? Hello? And then they found out, much to their horror, they were Irish as well. Now, that's an interesting combination, Irish and African, and you're not looking like any of that. The reality is, you and I bring, when we're born, backgrounds with us that we know nothing about. When Rick Homer was born, did he have any idea what he brought to the table? No. Did Pat Sullivan? Did Bobby Vance? Did Ken Claus? I looked at my DNA and I found something that I thought was horrifying. There are 3 places you don't want to live historically on this planet. You ready for this? The Caucasus. Am I right? You ought to read about the Caucasus. Genocide after genocide after genocide for millennia. The next place, the Balkans. Is that a bad place? And that sliver in Eastern Mediterranean from Turkey to Western Syria to Lebanon to Israel to Egypt, that whole area there has been fought over for millennia. Guess I have 8% Balkans. What was my ancestry doing in the Balkans? That's the last place in the world you want to be from. We have no idea what we bring to the table, and guess what? We have no idea how we're going to be raised. Maureen Sullivan had no more idea what she was in the background. I think Maureen is from if I remember correctly, she's from a small area in southern Germany where they try to speak Danish.
No, she was born in New York, but she's Danish on her maternal side and Irish on the paternal side.
I know, Chris.
But she-
I was teasing her.
yeah.
I was
Ich
teasing her.
bin nicht aus Schleswig-Holstein.
I don't know what that was, neither does anybody else. I don't think even the Danish know what that was. We bring things to the table we have no idea, and we have no idea how we're going to be brought up, do we? Nobody here, when they're born, has any idea. And if you think having money is fun, look what happened to my mother. My mother was raised in money. Her father dies when she's 8. And what does her moneyed mother do? Sends skinny little Emily off to a woman's boarding school and sees her twice a year till she's 18. And that was very common. Very, very common. You have no idea what's going to happen to you when you're born. And so it doesn't make any difference where you're born, how you're born. You have no idea what goes into your background and no idea how you're going to be brought up. Am I right? No idea whatsoever. And we forget the birth is essential. And there's one other thing we're forgetting. Does anybody know what time of day Jesus was born? No, we don't. We have no idea. It's never mentioned. We don't even know when he was born. There's all kinds of guesstimates, but there is no agreement when. Rowena says nighttime, but no, Marina, there is nowhere, anywhere that's definitive. But here's one thing they have in common. If he was born in daytime, what did he see when he's born? Light. If he's born at nighttime, what's the first thing he sees? Light. Sunlight or light from the same thing. Remember the lamp from the temple, the rededication of the second temple, Rowena? The same thing. When you're born at night, you have what? An oil lamp. So you have light. Whether you're born in the morning or you're born at night, you have light. You have light. And what is that? I would suggest that light is the key to it all. From the very beginning, all religions realized the symbolism of light. All religions. Light overcomes darkness. It offers hope from fear, offers love, offers something that gives you renewal. Zoroaster has fire temples. Hinduism has Diwali, the famous festival of lights. St. Francis of Assisi wrote, all the darkness in the world cannot distinguish the light of a single candle. Think about that. If everything went dark and you were scared out of your wits, one little candle, and what happens? You relax. One little candlelight, and you relax. Am I right? Yes. Rumi writes all this religions, all this singing one song. The differences are just illusion and vanity. The sun's light looks a little different on this wall than it does on that wall, and a lot different on this other one, but it's still one light. So I'm going to suggest that for the Christmas story, we take a look at light. That is the one thing that nobody pays attention to, the birth. And when you're born, what did Jesus see? If it was the sunlight, it was the light. If it was at night, it was the light from the boat. And what does light give us? Light gives us hope. Now, one last thing you can say to me, but Kenneth, when we're born, given all that DNA and given how we're going to be raised, we're all cracked. None of us is pure. None of us has anything to offer. We're all cracked. And at that point, Leonard Cohen reminds us best of all, it's because of the cracks the light gets in. So I'm assuming this Christmas we're all a little cracked. We all have nutty DNA. We've all had various ways of being brought up, some of which were beautiful, some of which were awful. We've all a little cracked. We've all made bad decisions. But how do you think the light gets in? So my question for you this Christmas is, what are you going to do with your light? What are you going to do with your light? That's the question for me, for you, for this Christmas. Amen. At All Souls, we wanted to be sure that light comes to all, and especially when it comes time to offer bread and cup, a very, very ancient sign of welcome. And so whenever we gather, we offer simple bread and cup to let you know your light is welcome here. A simple bread and simple cup. We ask you come and be affirmed for who you are, and what you have to offer as just being you. So on this day and every day we gather, come and let us be together. Let us join in our journey together, offering strength and love and peace and hope. And I would ask you to repeat these words after me. Oddly enough, they come from a children's story. Maybe that's where we need to begin. And I'll ask you to repeat the words after me, and some of them you'll know, you've seen them before when you were growing up. Promise me you'll remember. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. God didn't promise days without pain, laughter without sorrows, and sun without rain. But the divine did promise strength for the day, comfort for the tears, and light for the way. I wasn't sure how to do a blessing, so I wrote one. And here we go, for those of you who would be kind enough to read with me. And now, in this most special of seasons, may that power, stronger than the brightest star, and yet found in the most common and humble of births, nurture, heal, transform, and guide us all our days. Amen. Thank you very, very much for being with us on Christmas Eve morning. We want to thank Digit for being with us for tech. We want to thank Nick for being with us. Mary, mother of Digit. That sounds scary. Rowena, our resident menorah maker. Pat Sullivan from New York, mother of Grant, who is now tall and big. Gail and Tom from Port Orange. Maureen is here. Judy and Rick, and thank you, Judy, for reading. Bobby Vance, thank you, too, for reading from Kissimmee. Pat Sullivan, looking like Santa Claus. Kim, who I've known since my very first year at college in living out in suburban Chicago. Alan and Eddie now in Washington, D.C. Cecilia down the street. Chris Diaz from North Miami. Jamie and Jaime and Moitza are up. They're married. They're up in West Palm. Pack and Care is here. Cindy and Larry Deach are in Port Orange, and Danny is here. Danny is living in Denmark. As I pointed out, his Danish girlfriend is coming to visit soon. Gail and Tom, good to see you. Blessings, 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 one and all. For those of you who want a quiet way to begin Christmas Eve, it's 6:30. Grant will be singing again. A quiet time of lessons and lots of music. Goodbye to you all. Be safe and well.
Merry Christmas.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Merry
Bye-bye.
Christmas.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Very good.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.